It's International Energy Week in Singapore. As interest in clean energy grows, so has the need to fund some of these green energy projects. According to research firm Prekin, as many as 30 private equity funds operate in Mumbai as well as in Singapore in search of funding requirements of as much as $80 billion. Now, one of these funds is Maybank's MEACP's Clean Energy Fund. I'm joined now by the Chief Executive Officer of the fund. He is Mr. Mumtaz Khan. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for joining us. Let me just ask you, you're looking for $500 million in terms of funding requirements. Where are you right now?
We have already raised $150 million from anchor sponsors. Our fundraising is a global effort which has just begun, and we have another 12 months to get the fund size up to $500 million. I remain confident that we will be able to do so.
Have you been affected by the ongoing turmoil which has affected pretty much all sectors of fundraising activities right now?
I think that in general that applies to all fundraising activity, be it in clean energy or in any other space. I would though point out that in clean energy we have investors that have a specific interest in this sector, and to some extent we see greater interest continuing in the clean energy sector despite the downturn that is more general in nature.
There is also a little bit of a shortfall in terms of funding, actual funding raise. I mean, this was a peak. This hit a peak in 2008. It's sort of fallen off since then. Can you attribute this to any particular factors?
I think that when you look at fundraising on a global basis, you have to distinguish between fundraising in the West and fundraising in Asia. I believe that more and more investors are looking to Asia to invest broadly across all sectors. And I think clean and renewable energy sector is a sector in which Asia is a global leader now, and that is already well established. And therefore, we believe that there will be continuing support for clean and renewable energy projects and funds in Asia.
Let me ask you now about the returns from some of these funds. They are obviously a little bit newer compared to some of the more established funds. 10% from some of the earlier vintage funds. What sort of number do you have for the Clean Energy Fund?
Our Clean Energy Fund is targeting a return of 20%. This is a return based on exit, and it starts off from looking at cash returns from projects that are in the mid-teens, which allow us to achieve 20% plus on exit. I believe that those returns on a cash-on-cash basis in the mid-teens are appropriate. They are attractive in today's low interest rate environment, and they are attractive also because they have a different risk profile. Our fund invests mostly in power generation rather than in technology and manufacturing.
What about oil prices? I mean, this is a big factor, obviously, as far as clean energy projects are concerned. It's above 100 now. Good or bad for you?
Yes, oil prices and clean energy reach an inflection point. I think at 100, clearly clean energy becomes more and more viable. And I think that in the long term, oil prices are not likely to come down, even though there may be periods where they may come down. And I think for all those reasons, and that combined with the reducing cost of clean energy technologies, that provides a very strong, firing, if you will, on both cylinders. High price of oil, finite resource, and the reducing cost of clean energy.
Quick question on subsidies. This appears to be rolling back in some parts of Europe. Is this good or bad for the industry, the clean tech industry as a whole?
I think that you have to look at, the origin of the subsidies, the countries in which these subsidies started, which is in Europe, and more importantly, the reason for why the industry was being promoted in Europe and why it contrasts differently in Asia. In Europe, the industry was promoted primarily to reduce emissions and to provide an incentive on that line. In Asia, the industry is driven by the sheer demand for power, and the growth for energy demand in Asia is the highest in the world right now. And as a result, Asia needs to apply all sorts of different technologies and different sources of creating power. And clean energy definitely is one that most Asian governments are giving high priority to.
And again, showing the potential of the clean energy sector. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for your time today. And that was the Chief Executive Officer of the Maybank MEACP Clean Energy Fund, Mumtaz Khan. I'm Arnold Gay at the Singapore International Energy Week. This is Reuters.